Greetings, I am Lies.
And I am Scandal.
And let's play a game together. So this has been an interesting set of events, a couple of episodes of just really, guys. Fascinating.
Yay!
Fascinating. Remove weeds. Bye, Blaine. Oh,
Goodbye.
I don't actually want to call him a weed, but at the same time, can you put on some shoes? Because there should be so many brambles. And like these again,
Thistles?
these purple ones they are Canadian thistles as far as everything I can identify.
Pain.
They are sharp as hell. And they shed thorns that you will walk on.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just like, I really need to talk to Regina. She was so upset.
You can't worry about her right now.
You need to take care of yourself.
The most important thing is finishing your work and inheriting, right?
So we talked about this very briefly off screen. I went, when did Blaine learn about her inheriting in any direct sense? Because she got the letter by herself in the intro.
Yeah.
And then she just left him. And when he came over and bothered her the first time, I don't remember her expositing anything about having 30 days, anything like that.
I don't think so either.
My theory is that she spilled everything last night while she was drunk on wine.
Yes.
But it would have been nice if we'd have actually known that connection. However, I am now getting to this thing of going, okay, so what they're building is the Blaine has shown up to basically ride off on her money.
Yes.
And that while he ran around the bush for a little while going, no, I'm not here for that. You and the reader can both be confused. They're now going, what he's here for is to take advantage of Lily as a resource.
Yes, absolutely.
And so they're starting to build into that, which makes more sense, but also, damn, it took a while to get around to it. And I wasn't feeling suspense. I was feeling discomfort.
Yeah, because this kind of abusive / manipulative behavior is really... God, it is a thing to commit to writing, let me tell you. Like, whoa.
Also, his language here feels way less careful compared to his other stuff. Like, his manipulative, abusive stuff sounded way more skilled.
Yes.
This here, it shouldn't be, if he's saying inheriting, that sounds like this is supposed to be a red flag. Reader, beware. Reader, pay attention.
Yes.
But if he says, and securing your home.
Right.
Sounds way more like the level of language he's been using so far. So I would argue for something like that, where he doesn't say, and inheriting, because he hasn't been stupid so far. Even if he has said, oh, I'm stupid and useless without you, that is as much a lie as anything.
Yes.
Even if he is disorganized, he doesn't seem dumb. And he seems like he very much knows what he's doing as a manipulative person, as an abuser, as a user.
Yes, somebody
That
who's
kind of
also, like, regularly messed up other people as well, as far as we can tell. So.
Someone who takes advantage of other people. And so I'm not feeling this particular linguistic choice here, other than going, we're supposed to let the reader know what his true motives are.
Aha!
Which feels too direct. I guess.
Let's pick some weeds.
Ow. Him. Ow. Him. Ow.
Yeah.
He kind of did! Yes! Oh my god, yes. Get that boy some gloves. He is a disaster. Because again, even when people are causing a problem in certain situations, and when they're not good for the person they're with, because just because they're abusive in one situation doesn't mean that's who they are all the time everywhere at all.
Yes.
Like, it just, as much as it's really sometimes very, like, edifying for an individual who's been abused to go, they are an abuser and getting them out of my life, they can actually go on to have a relationship with someone else that is completely not abusive and where they have learned about themselves and done different things.
And is actually safe, sane, and consensual. Ta-da!
All of that can happen, and you never have to deal with it, and you don't need to feel bad that it wasn't you, asshole, ever. Mm-hmm. And you also can completely yeet them from your life with no thought ever.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what they do. However, in this case, I don't wish harm on anybody ever, so get that boy some gloves.
Yes. You'll just have to show me which ones are weeds.
And that's actually really, really reasonable. And honestly, I have met one person in my life, one person who was a master gardener. She was amazing. Her yard was a fabulous excursion. Like, it was phenomenal. And the thing was, she had gotten in trouble with the homeowner society several times. I actually met her rather randomly when I was doing, like, artistic work outdoors in a neighborhood, because I've done, like, murals and things like that before.
Right.
And I just started talking to her, and she's like, I have had the neighborhood, association, the HOA, called on me several times, going, you need to cut these weeds down. She's like, I give them the Latin names of the plants, their functions, their usage, their value, and everything. She describes her entire garden to them. I'm so sick of your shit. I'm about 70 years old. I know more about plants than you likely ever will even understand is possible to know, and you can get the hell off my lawn. She was amazing.
That's fabulous.
It was very charming. Like, she was a character. She was the type of character that people go, this is my OC, or I want to write brought her into the background of one of my books. She was fabulous. She made a real impact on me in the 40 minutes I knew her.
You were like, you are a powerhouse.
Yes,
Hello.
you are a force, and your yard is amazing. And she really did have a passion for plants. And even in her, I will shit on you for your ignorance, she was very dignified. It was beautiful. It was lovely. Anyway.
Show me just which ones are weeds.
So this doesn't necessarily indicate incompetence in him at all. Most people don't know what weeds are weeds and aren't weeds, let alone whether or not it's a plant you want to keep. Some people going, no, I love the dandelions.
Yes.
So that's a really appropriate question.
Yes. One lesson in weeds picking. Weeds picking?
Weeds picking.
Weeds picking later.
It's weeds picking.
Weeds.
Look at all these weeds pickings out here.
Aha!
Okay.
How did I do?
You're asking for a performance rating from me.
Yes.
Do you really want it?
No. Not at all. That
How
was
did
a
I do?
joke.
Well, you worked at it longer than you have in bed.
Joke.
Okay,
Was a joke.
So in the actual canonical commercials for this game, and one of the things that made this game so popular and interesting was the commercials for it. And we didn't even actually, at the beginning of this run, show the commercials that were the interesting, controversial ones. They were all a long story. So if any of you haven't gone and looked, there's a long story of the Lily's Garden ads that show a lot of sexual innuendo, a lot of suggested women empowerment, a lot of awkward behavior, wherein there's her and him having a romantic scene, getting into bed together, and you show the clock. 1 minute goes by and he looks profoundly satisfied when they zoom the camera back out. And she looks a little bit like, yeah, that's how guys are. That sort of affectionate sadness that she does so often. And that's the experience. So how did I do? Well, you certainly spent a lot longer working at it. Fits in with the canon.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Anyway, so that's where I'm going with that. But there's so much here. Oh my God.
No kidding.
Not bad for a novice. Thank you.
All right. Well, then we'll go on to the next one if we're not bad enough.
He's not bad for a novice.
Not bad for a novice. Oh,
also, I wanted to just spend a moment of one explanation of, or teaching of how to, pick weeds later. I was really where I instructed him in exactly the same way I instructed Karen, as if he was a small child, younger than even she actually is. Sigh. Do you think you can trim a tree? I don't have trimmers because I've been using magic from my patron the whole time, but maybe you can just use your teeth.
Maybe I can go get you one? I think there is one somewhere.
I'm pretty sure I have a lot of garden tools that I never really use because I've used so much magic, and I haven't even really thought about the fact that it's magic. Everyone's been super chill with it. I think my patron has honestly made it so that everyone just doesn't care. There's some sort of an SCP field around it where it's just, that's someone else's problem. I don't need to ask. In case you don't know, SCP field is a Douglas Adams Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference, and it literally means somebody else's problem. And when you think about it, it's like if you look at something going wrong and your brain goes, that's somebody else's problem, you will not engage.
Yes.
It's very charming. All right.
Is that something people do?
Trim trees. Blaine, I know you've lived in the city, but there are trees in the city as well. And yes. What? Yes. Blaine, yes.
Yes.
I don't want to find your ignorance charming, but I'm so used to you playing it as charming that yes.
Can't you just leave them alone?
Leave them alone.
Leave.
If he'd have said leave them alone, I'd have been angry and happy at the same time.
I think I would have been furious.
I would have been furious.
I would have been disgusted.
And disgusted and laughing.
I would not have been. I would not have been.
I'm
I've been
how dare you use puns against me and again try and get on my good graces when you have been such a jerk? I hate you in this moment. All right. Well, I mean, you can, but they get out of control and start looking scraggly, and you will not talk me into leaving this garden a mess so that I don't get the inheritance.
No, that would be really bad.
No, it's fine. Just leave them alone. Natural, organic. Wanna try trimming some branches? Thank you. You are not gonna talk me out of this. We're gonna do it.
Okay, good. Why don't I watch you do it first?
One, you look terrified, but two, I feel like you're shoving work off on me, and I wish you wouldn't. But three, you do need training, and this does require training. So when I was young, I was terrified of doing rose bushes. So I got the impression that rose bushes needed really specific trimming at a really specific time of year to flourish. And from what I understand, there is a reasonable amount of understanding what you're doing and where you're trimming them in reference to springtime growth if you want really good blossoms. Like, that is what I understand. However, in the past, when I was younger, my mom and I did landscaping a lot and yard work. Now, it was very limited. It wasn't a huge company or anything. It was something she ran herself,
right?
As a single mom. But that was something I did with her. And it was this thing of going, I thought rose bushes were this mystical thing that nobody could trim unless they had basically a degree in gardening. When
Right.
I was a young person, working a yard job. And I have learned that it's basically knowing where the graft is on the bottom, because rose bushes have a strong root base, root stock that is grafted to a desirable flower stalk.
Right.
Because so far as almost all rose breeds are concerned, you don't get a really strong, hardy rootstock in a really desirable, pretty, beautiful smelling rose. Like, it can happen sometimes, but in the same way that they do that with citrus trees and other fruit trees, where they graft them to go, here's the fruit we want, and here's an extremely strong root base. And we haven't needed to try and breed those two together, which is very challenging because we can just graft it.
Yes.
Okay? And so you never want to cut below the graft. And also, you're cutting off anything that's dead, kind of thing, and getting out all of the, basically, the dry wood, if you will, as well as in some cases removing previous years like rose hips and things, so that your plant will focus on new growth.
Yes.
And then you're thinking about the height you're cutting it at for your own aesthetic, etc.
Yes.
And you want to do it in, as far as I understand, early spring. And you can check me on these things. It may be different for different regions, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Like, regionally, this can be very different. Like, growing a garden where we are with, 1% humidity and 100-degree weather is very, very different than growing one in, say, Florida.
It's true, actually.
People going, oh no, toilet paper tubes make great, peat pots, basically starter pots for seeds. And we're going, they dry out so freaking bad. They dry out in like 15 minutes out here. And the cardboard specifically wicks moisture out. So only do that. I would say
high humidity.
High humidity. Don't use peat pots or cardboard as seed starter containers or egg crates unless you have high humidity.
Yes.
So that one. Anyway, my hero.
All right, well, here we are. Clip, clip.
One lesson in tree trimming later. I hope he's a good understudy.
Oh, God, I hope so, too.
Like, did we do all of them?
Yep.
Look at that cool looking giant lily pad plant.
Oh, that's so neat looking.
I do not know what that is. Okay, so we're looking like near the back of the wheelhouse, or, the mill.
Yeah.
There's this really big lily pad kind of plant. I'm going to tap on it when I move the dialogue forward. It's super cute. All right. See, you just trim branches. It's not just trim branches, though.
Yes.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Sorry.
I'm learning so much.
So what I will say that I know about tree trimming, which I know much more about that than rose bushes, is that you're looking for a couple of things. You're looking to get rid of deadwood, and you're looking to get rid of nuisance branches, sort of the things that are growing into or onto things you don't want.
Yep.
And then also a tree shape that is desirable.
Yes.
So like, you really can trim trees to go, this is a tree shape that's desirable. Usually that tree shape that is desirable, though, is in a natural alignment with what the tree tends to do. So if you're talking a globe willow and it's not a globe, you can gently trim it down to encourage that shape more.
Yes.
And it will actually create better shade and health for itself as it gets more into that shape. In the same way that if you're trimming a pine tree, you don't want to just lop the top off and try and square it out. You want to stick with that triangle experience. Okay, but you can totally trim up branches much higher to also allow you to walk under trees and give you that kind of space. So a lot of it is very much functional aesthetic when trimming trees, in reference to making sure they have enough branches left to continue to feed themselves and maintain their natural shape.
Yes. I'm learning so much.
I hope you're also learning, because I really do, as much as I'm inexperienced in gardening and a little bit more, and not super experienced in landscaping, I love plants. I really do.
Great.
All right. Good grief.
And now she might start to figure this out, going like, he's just being an idiot. All right, we have several options, actually, so let's just pick from the top, I guess.
Where did the soil come from that we need to replace?
I don't know. Remove fireplace weeds. Let's do that one, because that makes more sense.
What are fireplace weeds?
I don't know. What are they?
She's still really sad.
She really is, but
Poor
it's
baby.
understandable. Penny, for your thoughts?
No.
Ah.
Oh, I just should have told Regina you were here.
Why? It's none of her business.
Actually, since we were having a conversation about it, and since she was invested in helping me make better choices, healthier choices for me about you, it's kind of her business. Like, I didn't need to tell her, but I needed to not lie to her.
Yes. And she seemed awfully jealous that we were spending time together.
Now you're trying to vilify her again and go us against the world. She's being petty. She's not a real friend. So he's using very careful language here again, which I would like to point out because it's language that I'm extremely familiar with, and a lot of my friends who either have been raised as women or are women have been familiar with as well.
Yes.
And going, this might be, if you're a woman listening, very familiar language to you that you don't necessarily have a lot of like descriptive language for or a lot of context for.
Yeah.
This kind of behavior is different than just going, hey, but I'm here with you, let's have a good time.
Yes.
It's going, She seemed jealous. Let me put a negative modifier on her. Going, I'm still rational. I'm not saying she was jealous. I'm saying she seemed that way, planting ideas in your head that are negative. That we were spending time together and correlating it to something that I think is positive and also petty.
Yes.
Something I want you to focus on, we're spending time together, but is petty for her to be jealous of.
I would call it contrasting with something that's positive, because you have something negative with something positive.
Okay, sure,
so that way it's a much sharper contrast. So you can really easily tell, well, she was jealous and we were having a good time.
Okay, excellent word choice.
And
excellent
also
word
at
choice.
the same time too, so this is a language thing sometimes some people will use regardless of whether or not they realize it, where they'll start out with something negative, but they'll always end on something positive. And that's actually some behavior that our current president really, really likes to do, where no matter what, actually there's a person who does a breakdown of it, where they talk about his language, where he tries every single possible way to end basically in a manner that makes everything that he says sound positive.
Or make the experience sound positive.
At least as long as it's supposed to benefit him. If it's about somebody else, he will totally rail on them. But when it comes to him, he really, really tries to go out of his way to make it always end on something positive in relation to himself.
Right, and we're not even talking actual politics here. We're just talking about his behavior of speech as a person, which you can do a lot of analysis on with any person. Of what are your speech behaviors? What do they indicate about your background? What do they indicate about your motivations and who you are, kind of thing.
Yeah, I will actually make a note so we can potentially link to that. I believe it's by Infranauts. I will take a look.
That broke it down really well, so we'll just get that in here. If the link isn't here, I mean, obviously you don't have to follow it, but if you look for it and it's not there, please feel free to let us know, and we will go find it. But someone broke down his linguistic patterns really thoughtfully. And while there is some opinions in there about who he is and what his agenda is, and you can take that as you like, it is a really useful linguistic breakdown. Yes. Super cool. Like, we both enjoyed it. And again, there are things that I enjoy frequently when someone's like, I have super strong opinions. I'm like, I don't really like your opinionated pieces, but I really like the information you're giving me is outside of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Awfully jealous of the time that we were spending together.
Yeah. Jealous. So again, he's planting ideas that favor him.
Yes. Of course! Her reaction was totally overblown. She probably has a crush on you or something.
All right, so here... Okay, so I want this to be cute and inclusive. And I like that it is inclusive in that way of him going, she's just trying, she's into you. And that is representative because he's not, basically going, well, since she's a woman, clearly that's not her motivation.
Right.
Or she's into me, which would be fucking hilarious.
Right.
But it bothers me again because of the overall context of this game and the writing we've encountered so far. Again, sounds like it's just lip service. They never seem to follow through with these ideas. Yes. It always just seems to be like, here's something the fans will recognize. Here's a millennial positivity.
Here's the queer coding that you've all wanted, except for the fact that we're not really going to use it or really, like, I'm not talking about queer coding in the sense of how the story is working, not necessarily characters, because so far, we haven't run into what would be, as far as I know, on page, any character that is actually queer coded or actually queer themselves. So,
I was going to say, but basically they're just crumbs of like millennial baiting.
Yes.
Essentially.
Which is like the thing of after the fact of, wonderful TERF J.K. Rowling mentioning, hey, by the way, Dumbledore's gay, after all the books are done and it can't possibly harm any of them.
And so, since I also am aware that TERF is a term that not everyone knows what it is, and even the news didn't know what it was last time I watched, it's a trans exclusionary radical feminist. It's not actually a slur, it's just an acronym. That describes a system of beliefs.
Yes.
And if you already knew that, that's okay. I'm not like putting judgment on that. I'm just going, sometimes I listen to things and people use terms and I go, I don't know what that is. And by the end of the video, there's like 15 things I would need to look up. So it's really nice to just have that marker going, that's what that is, if I didn't know.
Yes.
So that's sometimes why we throw those things in there.
Yes.
All right.
She probably has a crush on you or something.
So I appreciate that that's here, but I wish the game would follow through with those things more.
Good. Lily's doubting him.
I don't know. Maybe. But also the pause is maybe like she's also considering conceding to him.
Yes.
So she might be like, she has natural doubt of him.
Yes.
But she's also constantly considering concession.
Yes.
Right.
Which she's very used to doing.
Can we pick some weeds? This is actually a healthy behavior. If you don't know how to deal with something, go to something else.
Yes.
There's a really healthy way to get out of a conversation you don't know how to handle is to move it to something else. Now,
which I was actually going to say, as much as I laugh at the commercials sometimes when I see them, the whole Twix joke of I just need a minute and putting food in your face is actually a way of do something else for the second so you can give yourself a breather to literally come back to the conversation. I'm not endorsing Twix here, but hey, get in contact with me.
But that one thing is just, but you could sponsor us if you wanted to. I was going to say, but there's this experience of going, it doesn't mean you're not going to address the problem
Right.
or that you're going, no, this doesn't exist, I'm just putting it on the back shelf. You can literally disengage so you have time to work with your feelings and figuring out what you really think. A lot of times when I'm struck blindsided by something, I respond really neutrally to it because I have no idea what my thoughts are, because it's so unexpected, expect the unexpected, impossible, that I really don't know how to react to it. And so by the time, if I try to react to it in that moment, it's not genuine to me and who I am.
Yes.
And so I always just take that time a lot of times to then come back to the conversation. And I've done it with a lot of my bosses and managers where they'll come with something really big at me and I'll be very calm about it. What do you need right now? What do you want right now? Okay. And then later I'll come back and I'll be like, hi, so when you yelled at me on the floor, and it's always an appropriate time when they have office space, not just jumping them with it.
Yes.
And then going, here's how I felt. Here's what my experience was. Here's where I admit that I had the trouble you were saying. Here's where it would have helped me handle it a lot better. And also, since you're supposed to tell your bosses what you need from them to do your job, because they're there to help you do your job. Because while they are in charge, that in chargeness is so they can help you do your job. Managing is providing the resources and direction that people need to do their job.
Yes.
And if they're not doing either of those things, then they're probably not really managing. They're overseeing or supervising or something like that.
Right.
But anyway, then they're doing other duties. But I was going to say, but there is that experience of going, here's what could have been done to actually prevent this experience on both of our sides and would equip me better in the future.
Yes.
All right, let me pick some weeds. So I feel like her deflection here is really, really healthy for her because she doesn't know what else to do.
Yes, absolutely. Just show me what's a weed.
All right, we'll do that. Sometimes I like to pretend that weeds are my problems. Okay, I don't even have time to dig into this.
No.
This
We're out of time.
a big thing. So there is a lot of like sharing with someone you're familiar with in ways that you don't need to give them familiarity with you.
Yes.
And she doesn't, while she can give him this tool, she's also letting him in on something very personal that she's developed right now as a coping mechanism.
Yes.
Which is giving him more access to her.
And again, that thing of basically letting down her boundaries and slowly but surely conceding to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And going, if you're trying to be familiar with me, I'll try and find familiar ground that makes me comfortable, but it still gives you footholds of familiarity with me.
Yes, absolutely.
You were a weed once, maybe more than once.
That was before. I came back. Who ever heard of a weed that comes back?
I don't think you know very much about weeds.
That's supposed to be
Blaine?
ironic. I know.
Yes! You don't know much about plants, do you, Blaine? Another lesson in weed picking later. In weeds picking. Sorry, weeds picking. I think they're using it like fishes, like multiple types of weeds.
I can
so
see
weeds
that.
picking,
That
because
could
we're
work.
pulling many kinds of weeds. Oh, it looks like this place is supposed to be a little campfire spot.
Maybe?
Where do you see a campfire?
That's what I'm confused by going.
Oh, going, how do you get that? I don't see a fire pit.
Neither do I. All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. If you like what we do, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And please also feel free to share our videos with somebody that you think might have a good time with us.
Absolutely.
Other than that, though, if you'd actually like to support us more directly, please feel free to go check out our Ko-Fi or Patreon. We got some links in the description down below. But other than that, I have been Scandal.
And I have been Lies.
And it was great playing with you. Bye!